Hi guys, it's Katie Book Corner. Welcome back to my channel, and I'm coming to you with my May wrap-up. Before I get into the books I read, let me just see if I'll be able to do this. So, this is one pile of my May TBR. Here's the other pile. Because I'm so excited to say that I did it! For the month of May, I read a total of 15 books. And let me tell you, it was a whopper of a month. I read a total, let me tell you the total pages I read. So I read a total of 6,687 pages in the month. I like to keep track of the pages I read, and I read a total of 6,000. That is the highest pages I've read since I started keeping my bullet journal. Because with my bullet journal, I tell you the title, I have the author, and then I have the pages read. And so I read a total of 6,000 pages, and that's really good for Katie, because I was worried that I would be able to read. I was nervous that I wasn't going to finish my May TBR, but I did. I finished it, and I got it done. So I'm going to start off with the first book I read in the month, and that happens to be William Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. It's a nice, fun, and easy read that I was able to do in a day. Just because for this edition of A Midsummer Night's Dream, it is only 85 pages. Yeah. I went from page 1 to page 85. Yeah, I went to page 85. And I was only reading A Midsummer Night's Dream, and I wasn't reading any of the other comedies. This is a special edition copy that I got, and it's a Borders special edition. I got this before Borders shut down. I grew up with Borders. I loved Borders with all my heart. Barnes & Noble is now that, as any other indie bookstore. But I read A Midsummer Night's Dream. So after A Midsummer Night's Dream, I decided to reread a whole series that the second book I read the month before, so that was fresh in my head. But because the last book was coming out in the series, and I wanted to reread the first book before the last book came out. It was over a year since I read the first book, so I'm like, oh, let me just reread the whole series. And that would be, the first book at least, is Karvall by Stephanie Karvall. This is book 1 in the Karvall series. The first time I read this, I read it in a day. This time I spent it out to about a week, I believe, of reading this. And I absolutely loved rereading the series, and I will definitely be doing it again soon. So after rereading Karvall, I went into one of the 3 Rick Riordan books I had on my TBR for the month, and that happened to be Percy Jackson and the Titan's Curse. This is book 3 of the Percy Jackson series. I am doing a Percy Jackson reread this year, and I am enjoying my journey so far and reliving the Titan's Curse. So after finishing with Percy, I went into Legendary by Stephanie Garber. This is book 2 of the Karvall series. I read it in April, and then I read it again in May. Got me ready for a finale. This book. So I'm not going into the full details about the books, because, again, it's 15 books that I read. So I'm keeping it nice and short. So after Legendary, I picked up The Throne of Fire, which is book 2 of the Kingdom Chronicles. This is the second Rick Riordan book I have on the TBR for the month of May. And I'm currently rereading the King Chronicles on top of Percy. So I enjoyed going back to Egypt with the Kane siblings. So after Throne of Fire, I read Finale by Stephanie Garber. Let me tell you something. I absolutely loved this book. Even though I was dreading it, because I didn't want to finish it, because I cared so much about it. But I did. I finished Finale. And I have 2 copies of it, because I have this nice United States American version of Finale, the Barnes & Noble exclusive. But I also have the Fairy Loot edition of Finale, which looks like this, and has the cool sprayed edges. And it has the cool foil on the cover, and the quote says, "The most magnificent things are worth living for," and I love that quote. So I enjoyed reading Finale. I'm sad the series is over. I do plan to reread this series multiple times. So after reading Finale, and my heart broke into a million pieces, I picked up Defy Me by Tahira Mafi. This is book 5 of the Shadow Me series. I found the series earlier this past year, and I absolutely loved reading this book. I flew through this book. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I'm excited for the next book. The next book is the end of a duology, and a saga duology, and that happens to be Nexus by Sasha Alsberg and Lindsay Cummings. I enjoyed this book. It's not that big, but Nexus was like over 500 pages. This was under 400, and I enjoyed it. And I felt like I enjoyed the characters a lot more in Nexus than I did in Zenith. And this is a pretty cool edition, because this is the autographed book that I got when I went to their signing earlier in the month of May, and so I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I enjoyed Nexus. Next is the Descendant of the Queen by Joan Heath. This was the Books with Friends book club pick of the month. I liked it. I didn't fully enjoy it. I had a hard time with a lot of it. And so, yeah. It's interesting. I might pick up the next book. I don't know yet. But yeah. So, the next book is the 3rd and final Rick Riordan book I have on my TBR, and that would be book 2, The Hammer of Thor, which is Magnus chasing the gods of Asgard. This is the Norse mythology book series that Rick Riordan did. I'm more looking forward to reading the 3rd book, because at the end of this book, non-spoiler, you get to see a character from one of his other series. It's going to be making an appearance in the 3rd book. I'm excited, and I love this story. After that, I finished another series. I finished Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. I have officially finished the Gushaverse. I enjoyed it. I understand why some people hated this book, but I actually enjoyed the book. And I love Nikolai. And I'm excited to pick up King of Scars in the month of June, but I enjoyed Ruin and Rising. The next book I picked up was a Cassandra Clare book. I picked up The Red Squirrels Magic, which is book 1 in the Eldest Curses. This is based off Alec and Magnus and their journey. I think it was between City of Lost Souls and City of Fallen Angels, or City of Heavenly Fire. I don't know. But I enjoyed seeing Alec and Magnus and their journey together. And a lot of what happens in this book kind of makes sense in another novella series, and you can find out more about it in this book, which I enjoyed. The next book I have is A Beauty and the Beast Retelling, and it has the main character. Her name is Harper, and she has cerebral palsy, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and that happens to be Our Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmer. I enjoyed how the main character had a disability, and she didn't let it take over her life. I just enjoyed the representation and how much information she did to get the information about people with cerebral palsy. And altogether, I really enjoyed this book. So, I'm excited for the second book to come out. It comes out next year, so I'm looking forward to it. The last two books I had on my TBR, they're the last two books I have, and they're by the same author for two different series. One is like the third book, and the other one is the finale of the series. And so the first book is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This is book 3 in the Court of Thorn and Roses series, I believe it's the series name. And so much happens in this book that I don't want to say, even though it's been out for almost 2 years now, or a year. I do not know, but I am thoroughly enjoying it, and I enjoyed this book, the drama. Book 4 comes out next year, and I'm so excited to get my hands on that book. Yeah. Last, but not least, my last book on my May TBR, book 15, is the last book in a series. And I've been dreading to reading this book since it came out, because I was only halfway through the series. And it was the biggest book she had in the whole series. And that happens to be Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. Let me tell you something. I have been avoiding this book for so long because I was only halfway through the series when it came out, and I had to avoid spoilers for my favorite booktubers. Now I could go back and watch it because I've read the book now. But I enjoyed the ending. I enjoyed this book. It tied everything up perfectly, and I enjoyed it. Even though I think it was the biggest book I had for the month, and I was able to get it with a day to spare. So I've thoroughly enjoyed reading this. So that was the total of that was the 15 books I read in the month of May. This was my biggest TBR, and it was the TBR that I was more nervous to do, because I had no idea if I'd be able to finish any of these books before the end of the month. So thank you for joining me for this wrap up. So yeah, thank you for joining, and I hope you guys have a happy reading. Bye guys!